Isn't she great? Yeah. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited. I am a white male, as you know, and I'm talking about amplification. And but trust me, give me a little bit of space. This could be fun. The real stars are Julie and Madeline, and I just want to actually start by empowering you with these with the business case for diversity. I do have a 5-year-old daughter, Esme, my pride and joy. We adopted her from China, and she does ask me almost every day, Daddy, who's your boss? And I'm like, Sharon. We have the first female dean in over 100 years ever, like in our business school. It's pretty awesome. She's great. And then Esme just checks in. She's like, she's a girl, right? Still a girl, right? Esme, yeah. So anyway, it's a big deal. It's empowering. And here is why I'm doing this. Diversity does improve the bottom line, as you all know. Because it's a simple logic. Instead of drawing from the white men, the 31% in the workforce, we're drawing from 100%. Because that's where good ideas are. It's 100% of the ideas. You get 100% of the people, 100% of the ideas, you're going to have better ideas than if you just limit it to the 31%. Simple. And that's why companies in the top quartile of gender and racial diversity outperform. So if you have more women, you get 15% better returns. If you have more minorities, you get 35% returns. Why? Because you're getting more bigger piece of the pie, more people in the pool. This is for race and 15% is for gender. Why? Probably because we're more familiar with it. Race is a more untapped talent pool. Gender and racial diversity leads to a sales boost, 3 and 9%. Again, the 3% for gender, 9% for minorities. If your team member represents a target customer, you're 158% more likely to capture that. Makes sense if you know what the customer's like. Diverse companies, 70% more likely to capture new markets. Every 10% increase in gender diversity, 3.5% increase in profits. Investing with women on a board, 36% greater returns. And you're much less likely to restate earnings. You're much less likely to do unethical things with just one female board member. Yeah, next slide would be great. And then, there's a business case. It's very logical, and it's not advanced. Right click, arrow key. Oh, we're on a different app. It's going to be so great. It's going to be worth the wait. Look at that. Isn't that Sonny so glad you did this? Wow. Oh, this is incredible. Best slide ever. All right, so then this is basically how weird your friends are. If you have really weird friends, you have better ideas. Because you want to know why? It's because 2 perspectives from an average intelligent people is way better than 1 perspective from a genius. So that's what the power of talking to each other and diversity, right? All right, next slide. So the problem is tech founders don't believe it. They do not believe diversity works. They're like, yeah, in theory, yeah, of course, 100% of the people, blah, blah, blah. But for my company, it's too risky. I'm not going to do that. Only 23% of tech founders thinks diversity improves the bottom line. They're in too much of a rush, right? I mean, it's too scary. And then, by the way, us guys, right here, me and my bros, you're going to see them in a few minutes, my basketball buddies, we fix sexism. Just want to let you ladies know that. So, all right, we fixed it. It's done. We won. All right. But the problem is we didn't. But this is the next slide. This one is actually worth the wait, if it's the one I think it is. It is. This is it. This one is so crazy. My name's David. So that means I have CEO skills. I am 4.5% of the Fortune 1500, that's the S&P 1500 companies, are named David. So guess what percent of the population's David? Nope. Nope. 1. The few, the proud, the Davids. All right, my brother's name's John. 2% of the population's John. So Davids actually are overperforming, punching above their weight. Women, anybody know what percent women are? Yeah, like 50%. Like we'll go 56. Let's go 60. I don't know. I mean, it's about half, and it's 4% of CEOs. Crazy. There's more David CEOs than women CEOs. Isn't that sick? Okay, so this is when the white guys are like, maybe there's a problem. Can you get to the next slide, please? But this is a crate. And look at Roberts and Johns. So yeah, it's a problem, right? We're oversampling the Davids and Johns and undersampling everybody else, all the women. Yeah, like, all right. Okay, so then the next, go. Thank you. It's more difficult for women to get credit for their work. So this is a problem. So we want to get diversity. And we can get diversity at gunpoint. But then we really want their ideas. We don't just want like somebody filling a chair, right? And that is what we're going to talk about today with this amplification session. We're going to crack this problem in the next 45 minutes. Let's do this.
Good job. Thank you, David Heckman. We've been working on scripts with David and Julie for the last 2 weeks, which, as you can just tell from that presentation, it's been pretty hilarious. So we have, do you need this?
No, I need
okay.
the script.
So we have a script that we are going to show you 4 versions of with some influence. First of all, a typical scene based on a situation that Julie was in not too recently. She wrote a scene about this, then all of the actors here worked on the scene together, so you get a male and female version of what happened. The second scene that you're going to see is a showing of amplification that happens. Women amplifying other women, and we'll talk about that afterwards. Then the third scene is, we feel like you can't just talk about amplification, women being heard and supporting each other. You have to talk about the culture that they are working in. So we're going to have a little situation where I'm reading their subtext. So they're going to say their lines, and I'm going to say what they are really thinking, okay? And in the fourth scene, we're going to show you some tools that women can use, including amplification and some other tools. But we want to hear back from you about tools that you have used that may have worked in the past. So let's see. I need my glasses for this. All right. So this is a big topic. We've only got 90 minutes. We want to talk to you afterwards. And if you have anything you want to continue with us after in discussion, we really want to hear what you have to say, because we're going to continue with kind of perfecting this workshop.
Excuse me, and we're going to do that in the hallway.
Thank you.
At the end of the session, we're going to bolt, and just catch us out there, because they have to turn this room over for the next session.
So this scenario that you're about to see is based on a true story. Last night, this group of actors observed 3 focus groups through one-way glass. They observed 3 sets of women talking about shopping for dresses. Their task was to get current shoppers' impressions of the stores so that they could estimate growth and profit potential for the clothing company. The stakes were high for this team, because if they can impress the client, it's likely they will get signed on for millions in follow-up work. After the focus groups were over, the men went out drinking, but Julie and Dana decided to go back to the hotel and work. Surprise, surprise. So this is a reenactment of the meeting that happened the next morning. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. This script, though based in reality, is pushing stereotypes. So you get to decide how much are we pushing the stereotypes in the scene. It's important to note that the roles played by Julie and Dana could be played by any diverse women and any diverse man as well. Totally interchangeable with the roles that they're playing that you're about to see. Okay.
Hey guys, did you check out that game last night?
Oh, heck yeah, that was epic. Did
That
you
was
see
amazing.
LBJ do the block against the backboard? Ah, man, he's the greatest of all time.
Going back.
What'd you think of LeBron James' triple-double?
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Okay, guys. Okay. So let's review last night's focus group.
What were the key learnings?
Well, what I kept hearing over and over was how important price is to these women. Stuff like, I would buy that for a good price, and other related comments. Seems like it's always about getting a good deal.
You know, Dave, in my professional opinion, I think it's the price-quality equation that's something the shoppers are always thinking about.
I was totally getting the same thing, price and quality.
This is really good stuff. Is somebody taking this down? Hey, Julie, can you take some notes?
I'm on it.
It makes sense. The shoppers think about how many times they wear something and then decide how much they'll spend on it.
You know, I agree. I agree with Peter and I agree with Tim that price and quality are really important. But really what stood out for me is that if the clothes don't fit, it's a deal breaker. Nobody's going to buy anything if it doesn't fit.
Huh, that's a thought. Thanks, Julie. So guys, how can we really drill down on this price quality thing even more?
What we really need to do is we need to start with the sales data for the last 24 months from the 100 leading stores. And then we can look at what price ranges are driving the most business.
Yes, and if we look by brand, we can find that price quality sweet spot.
Good point, Tim.
Sweet spot.
I've got several individual quotes about fit.
Wait, guys. Let's not overlook fit here. I think that's probably pretty important.
You know, Peter Key, that's why we pay you the big bucks. You know, how can we dig deeper into fit?
Well, you know, I looked at the breakdown of why clothing was returned for each brand this morning, and what I found was that, you know, the more consistent a brand is on sizing, the fewer returns we have. So I've got that data right now. Let's look at it.
Why don't we hold off on that just a little bit? Let's not get too eager. But you and Peter Key seem to be really resonating here. So I need to present to the DM today at 5. You know, you're probably the least bad writer of the bunch. Why don't you put something together on the price, quality, fit thing? And Tammy, right? You said you had some quotes or something. So why don't you give them to Peter Rossman? And we'll regroup at 3. And after that, we'll put something together. Hey, don't mess this up. It's an opportunity for you, man.
Okay, let's do this. Got this. Hey, Julie, can you be a dear and get me those quotes?
You know, actually, it was Dana that had the quotes. So, Dana, you can get them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and could you get me the return data too, please?
You guys? Well, I'm glad you think so because that's what's going to win us the business.
Hey, guys, do you really want to grab lunch?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, let's get a
Okay,
beer.
so
Good beer.
what just happened?
Typical.
Okay, let's give our actors a round of applause. So we just want to get your feedback from the audience. You guys can jump up and grab a mic if that's okay. We want to hear what you saw in the scene. If you've experienced something like this, if we want to break down the behavior that was going on in the scene that was maybe not fair.
Hi, I'm Sheridan. Yes. I don't know any woman that hasn't been through that. I remember I worked in manufacturing, and it was my first meeting. There were 30 men on the shop floor in management, and I was the only woman. And we were in a meeting, and the first meeting, the plant manager looked at me and was like, "You're going to take the notes, right?" And I looked back at him, and I realized at that moment, if I didn't say anything, I was screwed. And I was like, "I'm not your secretary. I'm not taking your notes." And so then the running joke after that, for 2 years after that, was someone needs to take notes. Don't ask Sheridan. But it's one of those things that, like, everyone looks to the woman to do, like, the administrative, it was crazy. So, yeah, that, like, actually, I was like, whoa, that hit home when you said
So
that.
when you spoke up for yourself, how did the guy respond who said that?
He was like, all right, who else wants to take the notes? Sheridan will never take the notes on this meeting.
And
So
did you feel like it hurt your relationship with him?
Oh, no. Well, see, they asked me to be in the role that I was in. They had asked me to move into the role, and he and I had a great relationship. But I was just like, since he and I had such a great relationship, he just kind of blew it off and didn't care. But I kind of realized at that moment, like, if I didn't say anything, then I was totally screwed. Like, I was going to be treated as a note taker, as a management person on the shop floor, which is hard enough.
I think that's a really good point to leave here with, is setting the bar high from the very beginning in a job. Otherwise, it's a real scramble to climb your way back up, and it becomes more of a fight, and a statement if you don't do that. And something that you said applies to a later scene, so we'll bring it up later. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add something. My name is Catherine, and I was the first woman maintenance supervisor day shift at Pontiac Motors. So just emphasizing this. And I once lied and said that I didn't know how to type, even though I could type about 80 words per minute, so I would never take totes. I said, well, you know how to type? I'm like, I don't know how to type. Well, all right. And then they said it to some guy, and they said, do you know how to type? And he goes, well, sure. I'm like, all right, you take notes. I'm like, done. And for the whole time I was at Pontiac Motors, they got me an assistant because they thought I couldn't type.
Oh my God, that is so good. I love it. Okay, over.
My name's Cindy. I'm sorry. What was interesting about what Sheridan was saying is she took a stand for herself, and leveled herself. At the same time, it was a thing, because she's also saying that at every single meeting afterwards, all the guys made a joke about don't ask Sheridan. So there is that. Yeah.
Well, we were actually, just on that note real quick, is that we were at a talk that David gave a couple days ago, and there was a woman in there who is African-American woman who is constantly dealing with this issue. And she definitely said, I have to use humor constantly. That is the way out of it, is to be using humor. And then you have to roll with it. If you're giving shit about it for the next 2 years, you can roll with it.
You had asked what we observed. My name's Amy. And so what I observed was likes like. All the guys hung, they liked each other, they didn't step outside their comfort zone of relationship. And the women gave up their power. I noticed them speaking, but also really giving up the power, going, excuse me, just hang on 1 second, and not going back. And it's not a criticism, it's just a noticing, because I've done the exact same thing, right? It's like, wait, but we give up our power without having an access point in.
And we want to hear, more tools throughout this session about how to take your power back, and you'll see some of those in these scenes.
On that note, just to amplify, the men were at
Can
home,
you use the
women
mic,
were
please?
guests.
Can you use the mic? What did she say?
The men were at home, the women were guests.
Unbelievable, right?
So I was one of 3 women R&D directors at Avaya, and I show up and I'm running the project meeting. I'm the director, and we have product management and R&D in the same meeting, and the head product manager, who's my peer, asked me to get him coffee at the beginning of the meeting, and everybody looked at me like she is going to go ape crap on him, right? And instead, I want to figure out how to respond to these things with humor, but with grace, and not be brought down to their level. So I said, what would you like in it? Went and got it, and I put it in front of him and said, and next time you'll get me coffee, I'm certain.
Wow. And what was his response?
Sheepishly, yeah,
It's hard because I think one of the things about this conference in general with WILD is recognizing that when it happens, that you have a choice right away. Because let me just tell you something. When David, Julie, and I first met about this meeting, David handed us a sheet about what we were going to cover, some of the things that we were going to cover. And I was getting out my reading glasses to take a look at the sheet. And one of the things was about women taking notes. And David said to me, so Madeline, can you take notes? It was on the sheet for discussion, but I didn't realize that yet. And what happened to me, I was like, oh my God, did he just ask me to take notes? and then, yeah. But he was totally messing with me. And it was pretty funny, but the thing is that when you're in that situation, it's so overwhelming. And you have this recovery time, which is why it's so good to talk about it and know right away, or, oh, I heard a story about somebody this happened to, and this is what they did. We have to talk about it more, right? Okay, some more observations? Okay, yes. One more thing, and then sorry, go ahead.
I'm a female tech lawyer. I've been practicing for 20 years, so all of these things have happened to me. But what I loved about the scene is, as I've become more senior, the part that still happens is where the man slaps his name on the idea and you do the work. That was subtle, but I mean, that's still something I combat all the time. It starts, I think, as you go up in the ranks, the more obvious getting coffee and such doesn't happen, but that still happens all the time.
It's frustrating. So let's move on, because we have a lot to cover, and we'll get you next time after the next scene, okay? So, and David, yeah.
Okay. So redo. We're going to do this after, right?
Oh, okay, got it.
Aren't we doing that after?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
are
that's
now.
right, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Scene 2.
So David, despite all this data, it still comes down to that price-quality equation. That's something that shoppers are always thinking about.
I was getting the same thing, price and quality.
Hey, this is really good. Are we getting this down? Hey, Julie, can you take notes?
Yeah, I'll take notes.
It makes sense that shoppers think about how many times they'll wear something and then decide how much they'll spend on it.
Yeah, I agree with what these guys are saying. Price and quality are very important. But what really stood out for me is that if the clothes don't fit, it's an absolute deal breaker. Those women are not buying anything if it doesn't fit.
Oh, that's a thought.
I totally agree with that. And it's a really good point when it comes to women's clothing.
Thanks, Julie. So guys, how can we really drill down on this price quality thing more?
We've got to go out and get the sales data for the last 24 months from the leading 100 stores, and then we can look at what price ranges are driving the most business.
Yes, and if we look at it by brand, we can find that price quality sweet spot.
I've got several individual quotes about fit.
Wait, guys. Let's not overlook fit here. I think the fit of the clothing really matters.
That is such a good point, Peter. And that's exactly what Julie brought up about a minute ago. She's got really good data to support this. In fact, I have a great quote. One woman said, "I am not spending a dime on anything if it doesn't fit."
Oh, thanks, Dana. Yeah, I looked at the breakdown of why clothing was returned for each brand, and the brands with the most consistent fit get returned the least. So I think fit is where it's at.
Okay, all right. Well, I got my meeting at 5 with the DM. We got to get something. Let's regroup at 3. You're probably the least bad writer on the team, so why don't you head this up? Dana, you have some quotes. Sounds like pull out the best ones, and Julie, you got some data on this fit thing. Yeah. We'll work it all together, fit, price, quality, but you head this up, and let's regroup at 3. Let's get it done.
Okay. Okay, great. End of scene. Good job, you guys. So we changed a few elements of this scene, and I want to get your feedback on that, what you saw that was different and what wasn't working for the women. So do you want to bring up something that you...
It's funny because it was the one thing you cut out, actually, on both ends, but it was the social interaction. There was a really subtle thing, so I guess it wasn't pointed out at the end of this one, you didn't end it the same way, but the subtle nature of the fact that the guys went out to lunch together and probably the women are going out to lunch together. And that was something I never noticed until I was consulting and I had a male partner, and I was going on my own to a client site and didn't get drinks or dinner. He showed up to partner with me during one, and all of a sudden we had events every single evening. Like, people wanted to take us out, they wanted to chat with us, and of course I was brought along. And as soon as he was gone again, it was like, okay, Erin, see you tomorrow morning. And it was interesting because I actually even felt for myself uncomfortable to be like, hey, what are you doing? I'd love to continue talking with you, because again, obviously you get a male and female dynamic there, but just the fact that, right, the board table, you're getting groupings, the same things that are outside of the boardroom, so.
I think that social interaction in and out of the meetings is a really tough one to navigate. We talk about it a little bit in another scene, and the skills we talk about there would be applicable to social situations, although much harder in social situations to break through the power structure that's going on. But go ahead, thank you. I just want to take a moment here. This is Jillian Bierman. She is a CU student in advertising and my intern. And these are two of my interns right here, Mackenzie Green and Callie Galloway, who are helping out. And I do just want to introduce the actors who haven't been introduced. This is Dana Stillman. She is a graphic designer and has her own company called Inspire Graphic Design. This is Peter Kay. He is, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Peter Key is a project manager in histology, in a histology company. This is Peter Rossman, and he is in communications and is an excellent writer. And, and this is Tim Shanahan, and he works in IT. All of these people have various degrees of experience, and the CU students as well. And it's been really interesting to get everyone's input. Thank you for waiting for that.
Thank you. What I like this time is that David found everybody's strengths when he walked away, and he empowered the team as a collaborative approach. I like that.
And did you notice that something happened that maybe pushed him that way, direction in the scene?
I don't recall. I'd have to have instant replay.
Okay, how about back there?
I have a teacher voice. I really can't be loud, I promise.
Okay.
What I noticed was, I would say, when you two, I apologize, Dana and Julie, or yeah. I apologize.
No, Dana and Julie.
Whatever your name is, honey. That you two sort of mutually reinforced each other, and without demanding attention sort of overtly, you very sort of suggested that attention, and then you as the leader affirmed that, maybe not as strongly as I might like, but it was affirmed, and that was a difference from the previous scene, as well as the language that was used. Because that, for me, having grown up in the South, lots of pet names that sometimes are not don't feel good, and sometimes, the honeys, the deers, that kind of thing. I've learned to accept those from some people because of age and stage. But in that professional setting, it was so inappropriate, dear, and the guys thing as well. Hey guys, it's just subtle reinforcement of gender. And so I thought the second scene was an improvement. So, good, going in the right direction.
All right.
That was exactly what I was going to say. No, I think you did much of a better job than what I was going to do. Coming to you.
I think one other thing that was notable was that Dana took it back from Peter Key. He was like, that's my idea. And then Dana was like, oh, no. Julie had some really great thoughts on that, and then emphasized that it came from there and then expounded on it.
Any other comments about what you saw? Here, you can use mine.
I would say the women really didn't speak up unless they had facts, and the men spoke up with opinions.
Ouch, that hurts. The women have to use facts as opposed to opinions, and maybe they do, because they were up working until 1 a.m. The other guys were out drinking, right? They were doing the work, so they have to show all their work, which is a little bit difficult because the male culture isn't about showing their work. It's about bonding and pecking order, and we're going to get to that later. Yes, go ahead.
So yeah, we have a couple slides on amplification, which that's really kind of what happened here between Dana and, thank you, between Dana and Julie. And that's a big change. So the way our society works is basically men get the credit. White men are at the top in status, and then there's everybody else, women, minorities. And so what typically happens is the minorities and women fight each other over the scraps that fall from the big boy table, right? And so then, but then if women cooperate, I mean, that's a pretty bold statement. That's like, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Typically, I'm a competitor with you for the little tiny bit of praise maybe that'll fall from the boss. But then women banding together, what is that? That's a revolutionary act. And so here's an example in my field of basically women don't get credit. So if I have a female co-author, which I do, she gets 0% of the credit for tenure for that paper. She shouldn't even waste her time, because everybody thinks I did it. My name's David anyway, right? Double bad. It counts as 9% toward my tenure, 0% toward her tenure. The same thing, a journal, they did blind review, and basically women ecologists skyrocketed in terms of publication. It wasn't just a good year for female ecologists, but it's basically, when you blind stuff, women perform just as well as men, probably better. They outperform in college anyway. Here's amplification, the White House. This is kind of where it started. Women were sick of it. It was happening even in the Obama administration. They were not getting, they were getting their ideas stolen, they were not getting the seat at the table, their voices weren't being heard, so they started cooperating, right? That's pretty radical. They started repeating each other's statements. Good job, Julie. Good job, Dana. And that guys don't do that, as we'll see. Like there's this male pecking order where it's like cutthroat. It's like John Wick, the movie, like kill as many people as you can on your way to the top. And so this is crazy, and that's why I'm like I try to look all dumbfounded when I'm stood up. I'm like, what? I don't know what's happening here. You're helping each other. So yeah, that's an amazing picture, and then let's just stare at it. It's pretty cool, right? That's what we're doing. We're changing. We have the megaphone, human microphone for each other. As sometimes microphones don't work over there in that room, but they work when we repeat each other. So what's up next?
So we realized that amplification and women repeating each other's ideas at the table really isn't enough, because women want to be heard, but what culture do they want to be heard in, and what is the male culture that they're up against, and is the male culture happy in the place that they're in? I don't think people ask that question because the male culture, white male culture, is at the top. So we decided to do a scene, the same scene as the first one, with subtext. So in other words, these guys are going to say their lines, and when you hear my voice, I'm going to be saying what they're really thinking, okay? So it'll be interesting. And let me just read. So we have, we want you to take a look at the scene because often women don't feel heard. It isn't, that idea is put into the context of no one is listening to me, and therefore I'm not a part of this power structure. But in taking a closer look and doing some research and talking with all of these guys, we discovered that it's not as if the power structure is necessarily making the men happy either. So for any cultural advancement to happen, we need to understand what's happening on both sides, okay, of the equation. So once again, I'm going to be standing in the back of the room and reading their subtext.
Did you guys see that game last night?
Once again, I have to kick off the sports talk.
Hell yes.
I'm looking good right now.
I caught a couple minutes of it.
Actually, I was watching HGTV.
Hey, didn't LeBron get a triple-double?
What's a triple-double? I forget.
That game rocked.
Oh, I know more about sports than all these guys put together.
Yeah.
Shit, she knows more than I do.
Okay, team, let's review last night's focus group on women's shopping preferences. Wow, what were the key learnings?
Oh my God, I hate my life. How can I possibly be leading a team about women's fashion?
Well, what I kept hearing over and over was how important price is to these women. I heard things like, I would buy that for a good price, and other similar comments. Seems like it's all about getting a good deal.
I'm going to stick with price and quality because I know that's all he cares about. There's no way he cares about women's fashion.
You know, Dave, in my professional opinion, it's that price-quality equation that's something that shoppers are always thinking about.
Good job. I'm doing a really good job at rocking the boat. Ooh, and I got to sneak in the price-quality equation. It's super legit.
I was getting the same thing, price and quality.
Oh my God, that sounded so stupid. Way dumber than Peter's price-quality equation line. Way to blow it, Timmy boy.
Hey, this is really good. Is somebody taking this down? Julie, can you take some notes?
Yeah, I'll take notes.
You want me to take notes down? I'll take you down, buddy.
Makes sense that shoppers think about how many times they'll wear something and then decide how much they'll spend on it.
I think I used this exact same line last week in the Craftsman Tools account. Way to recycle.
So I agree with what Peter and Tim are talking about. Price and quality are critical. But what really stood out is that if the clothes don't fit, it's a deal breaker. These women are not going to buy clothes if they don't fit.
Why are these idiots ignoring the obvious from the research? Fit and feel. Geez, this insight could make us a lot of money.
Huh, that's a thought.
This suit fits so well. Like butter.
Thanks, Julie. So guys, how can we understand the price and quality thing even better?
Well, you know, guys, I think we need to start with the sales data for the last 24 months from the top 100 stores, and then we can look at what price ranges are driving the most business.
I know this dude loves his price metrics.
Yes, if we look by brand, we can get a good idea of the price-quality sweet spot.
Bring your A game with that line, Timmy boy. Redemption, baby.
I've got several individual quotes about fit.
Those morons. Do we have to yell to get this point across? Have they never bought clothes before? Do their wives shop for all their clothes? What's going on here?
Wait, guys. What really stood out to me is that if the clothes don't fit, it's a deal breaker. They're not going to buy the clothes if they don't fit.
Damn. I'm the only one who gets this. I'm special.
So special.
Wow. Good idea.
Wow. Only took 3 minutes for Peter Kay to steal my idea. That's a record, Peter.
You know, Peter Key, that's why you make the big bucks.
You scared? You should be. Remember who signs your Remember who signs your checks, asshole.
What?
Oh, good. Peter gets the big bucks. He was out kissing the boss's ass till 1 a.m. while we pulled the concept together. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Good job. So special.
Okay, so I just kind of want to get your feedback about that, and do any of you think about what's going on in the power structure when you're in this situation? Or any surprises there?
Yes. Let's talk. Let's let them in on our secrets, guys.
Yeah, go for it, guys.
We have
Let's
a
hear from your
secret
side.
society that they didn't even know about till 2 days ago. I blew my mind.
This was a shock.
Yeah. So who wants to talk? Who wants to tell them about? We have a pecking order. That's all we do. We just obey the leader. That's it. Why would we ever stay up doing research when the whole point is we know tomorrow's conversation is price and quality? We should go drinking and have fun because we already know we've been through this script every day of our lives.
And I want to say one thing. What shocked me was what you said earlier, David, that, there's the boss, there's the rest of the pecking order, and we are not even in the consideration set.
You're not real. Yeah. You don't exist. Yeah.
There's one reason why guys check out sports so much. Because in sports, you have numbers, you have statistics. It's easy to see who's the top dog, who's the guy that's chasing after the top dog, who are the guys that are on the bottom and the losers. Where do you fit into that pecking order? That's what sports is all about. When you look at how kids play, from a very young age, young boys will always play competitive games. They will always be about who gets the most, who wins the most, who's the winner, who's the loser. If you look at how girls play, they play cooperatively. It doesn't matter about who got more than the other person. It doesn't matter about who was better than the other person necessarily. But for boys, it's really typical. And basically, guys are just much older boys. So we're doing the same things that we do when we're kids. That's where we learn this. This is where we pick the stuff up. But it really is important because you want to know who the top dog is in the organization and where your role is. And that provides you some security and some comfort with what you need to strive for and also where you sit in society.
So you guys don't want us to play that game, though. And that's what I have always struggled with. I feel like I have a clear vision, a loud voice. I've been in a situation where there was a meeting going poorly, raised my hand to ask a clarifying question. Operations director yelled at me saying, I don't get to have an opinion. So how do I, which I know I have value to bring, I have clear insights, how do I engage in a way directly and have you hear me?
That's a beautiful question.
What's the answer?
That's what you're going to do.
No, I'm not sure if I have an answer to that, but basically, just like in any competitive situation, the fewer people that there are competing in any certain pool, the greater your odds of succeeding, the greater your odds are of climbing the ladder. So if you can do something in a really competitive environment that reduces the number of competitors, your chances, your odds improve.
I have a question about whether or not it sounds nice and it sounds comfortable to be in this, you know where you stand, you know who you need to kiss up to. So is it as nice as it looks like it is?
It's hell.
Number one. And if not, why? And number two, why would you want to change? Because from the outside, it looks like that'd be a fun club to be a part of.
Okay, so I'm number one in this scene. I'm number one. He's number two. He's nipping on my heels. I'm terrified of this guy. I can't look stupid. He's number three, and he's number four, HGTV, right? And we got to keep him down. We got to keep them all, like you're the least bad. But I want you to be afraid of him, and I want you to be afraid of him. And so it's just this constant hell, and I'm afraid of my boss. And we cannot let them in. That's 2 more people? Are you kidding?
Well, one thing that we talked about in rehearsing this with these guys was that it's boring. You know how people are always talking about corporate America, how the meetings are so boring. And one of the reasons that, to answer your questions, why would they want to change is these guys have talked about they're bored. And we talk about that a little bit in the subtext, but they don't want to be talking about sports. And these guys in the subtext were really working at trying to please the boss. And this is a leadership issue. We talk about this in the next scene. But the way that we've written these scenes is that everybody's trying to please the boss. So no new ideas are being considered. And these guys are probably bored stiff, right? I mean,
Another conversation about price and quality. We did it for the tools last week. That's all we do is price and quality.
I think for me, my name is Shahira. The authenticity of the women is what's most important to me. Like, I don't want to change and be a man. I don't want to be a leader like a man. I want to be who I am. So how do we as women project that instead of trying to become this testosterone-driven game of sports that we're playing at these companies?
Should we? Yeah.
Well, I think that is a question
don't you want to know? We figured out. We've thought about this a lot.
So,
Julie.
Okay. So we have one more version of the scene, which will answer some questions, and then we'll take some more feedback about tools that will help you guys. So this is behavior about to see that is going to disrupt the power structure of this meeting. And after exploring how white men are feeling in the last scene, we realized that actually disruptive behavior might be more welcome than we had previously thought.
I'm setting up.
Did you guys check out that game last night?
Dude, that was just epic. I couldn't believe LeBron. Amazing.
Hey, Tim, I checked out that restaurant you told me about, and it was awesome. My kids absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's great. I love that place.
Peter Rossman, have you tried this place? It's Asian fusion, and my kids absolutely love it. I'm sure your kids would love it.
No way. My son Will loves it. My son Will would love to go there. He loves sushi.
Yeah, Tim told me about it last week.
Where is this place?
Oh, it's a hole in the wall off Baseline.
Oh my God, are you guys talking about Scrumptious? I love that place. My husband and I had our first date there. Totally crazy night. It was supposed to be a romantic dinner, but kids were everywhere. We ended up having a total blast, meeting the best people ever.
No kidding.
Okay, guys, let's get to work here. Let's talk about last night's focus group. What were the key learnings?
Well, what I kept hearing over and over was how important price is to these women. Stuff like, I would buy that for the right price, and other comments. Seems like it's always about getting a good deal.
But Dave, in my professional opinion, I think it's that price-quality equation. That's something that shoppers are always thinking about.
I was getting the same thing, price and quality.
This is really good. Is somebody taking this down? Hey, Julie, can you take some notes?
No problem.
Makes sense as shoppers think about how many times they'll wear something and then decide how much they'll spend on it.
You know, Tim, I'm all over what you said. I mean, and Peter, you too. But Dave, don't you think that when I saw those women in the focus group, what I heard was, if something doesn't fit, it's a deal breaker. They're not going to wear it. I mean, haven't you had that experience? You buy something and, you take it back, it doesn't fit?
I mean, you're right. It really bugs me when something doesn't fit.
My wife's always returning stuff. If it doesn't fit the right way, she sends it right back.
So guys, how can we understand fit and price and quality even better?
I've got a lot of excellent quotes on the focus group that really show how fit and quality affect spending.
Dana showed me a couple of quotes last night, and they're just spot on.
One woman said, "I'm not spending a dime on anything if it doesn't fit." I'm going to send them to you. You'll be amazed.
Great. Thanks.
I don't think we should go on quotes alone. How about if we look at sales data for the last 24 months from the leading 100 stores? We can look at what price ranges drive the most business.
Yes, and if we look by brand, we'll get a good idea of that price quality sweet spot.
Good point, Tim.
That will really support these quotes from the focus group.
This is amazing. I'm glad. I mean, Tim, it's really helpful for you when you brought up that part about the fit. And you know, when I looked at last night, I had a chance to pull some data, and I looked at the breakdown by brand of returns. And the brands that we find have the most, the best fit, get returned the least.
You know, Julie, that's why we pay you the big bucks. How can we dig deeper into fit? Let's pull all this together by 3 o'clock. I mean, I got to meet with the DM by 5, so let's get it done. I mean, it sounds like we're on the right track.
This is great.
All right, this is awesome. Let's get it done.
Hey, Julie, thanks for backing me up.
Are you kidding me? Those quotes you pulled were fantastic. You picked the ones that are going to make this deal go through.
Okay, thank you, guys. So I want to hear what everyone noticed about what was different and what tools they were using to be heard in this meeting.
Right there, Jillian. Simple as it seemed like all the comments were directed to a person. So instead of throwing it into the room and going, hey, guys or people, what do you think? It's very easy to ignore that versus she called out, David, don't you think? And that forces a reaction, right?
So we thought it was very important when you're in a structure like this with the leader and all the underlings that are scrambling to get his favor. As a woman, if you call the leader in the room by name, you are then forcing him to listen to you. You're forcing all his underlings to listen to you. And then he's got a choice to make. Am I going to listen to her and approve of what she has to say or guarantee it? And if I don't and I ignore it, then that also creates a problem. It's almost what I would say is almost like publicly humiliating the person in front of everybody. And it is a way for the leader to save face and also to listen to you. I mean, to be crude about it.
It still just wears me out to watch Julie have to do that, to say this way. You are so exhausted after doing it for 30 years and being a corporate escapee now, that's now on parole, right? It is tough, and I just wonder, why is the onus always on the women? Why can't what I would love to see is some way to change it so the guys can step out of this tough place you're in too. It's not easy being you either, it seems, even though this, I want to push back and say, really? Y'all weren't being way extreme with your first responses. But why, how could we get guys to step up and do the same role that Julie had to do so it isn't so wearing on the one woman or two women in the room?
Well, I just want to respond to that because this came up yesterday when we were rehearsing. One is that, yes, women have to spend their time understanding male culture while men are spending their time trying to figure out how to work up the ladder within their own culture. Same for minorities, right? We are spending so much time. I mean, I've realized that in the last few weeks because I'm first generation American. I spent a lot of time figuring out the cultures of my parents, not being American, looking American. There's just so much stuff that I have to figure out. Well, women all have to do that. So yes, it's a pain in the butt. But what Julie did actually changes the structure for men where they all of a sudden have to work to understand a new culture that Julie just made happen in a split second by calling out Dave, calling his name out, but also shifting the culture by supporting every other man in that room.
Sorry, here you go. I'll say I've been in meetings with Julie, only women in the room, and that is authentically who she is. So I think that inclusive and calling people by name and trying to get everyone to speak up. So I think that she showed how authentically as a woman she can come in as a leader in this whole room. So maybe it isn't hard for her because she's naturally that way. She's just owning her way of doing it, which may be different than Dana's way or my way.
But did you have to learn that probably over time because you were in pretty corporate settings?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many of us, I was the only woman in the room for most of my career. And, you know, early on, you know, midway, I started getting guys to help me. You know, like before the meeting, I'm going to bring this up. If you agree with me, will you just like say something? You know, and they're happy to. So that was amplification. But, you know, after, I don't know about you guys, but I think when you're the only woman in the room, sometimes you don't see yourself as the only woman in your room. You just see yourself as like a person. And so for one, it's really confusing why, you know, why this is so hard. But for the other, it's also easier to just like think about people as people.
So I would like to share a success story and, you know, say thank you. I know it's exhausting. The last 30 years you've been doing this, but I'm very new in my career, and I do work at a tech company. It's very, very male-dominated. But I have the amazing benefit of having the most phenomenal female boss on the face of this planet. And I can honestly say I have not experienced this ever because she has. I know, it's amazing. Because she cleared the path for me. And so that's what I would like to do, is get to the point where I can help do that for other women as well. So thank you for all the work you've done because it's working.
You know, sorry, I wanted to say one other thing, and that is that one thing I learned working on this is, you know, and I thought it before, but this has nothing to do with, this is nothing personal. These are great guys. Most of the people that I work with are wonderful, and they absolutely have no clue that this is happening. You know what I mean? And so another thing that was interesting was, I think, in the skit, did you see what happened during the sports talk?
I think that works really well. I do that a lot to change it, because you don't have to compete with something you aren't familiar with, and they have those commonalities with you too, so they will jump in.
So what we wanted to call that behavior, you're talking about how Julie shifted the conversation at the beginning. We're calling that tool, you are coming in and you decide, even though you're not the leader in the room, you decide to become your own leader. And you do that by making yourself comfortable. So you lead the social conversation that happens at the beginning. And, you know, it's risky. Like, our first idea was going to be, Julie was going to say, oh my God, I went to the Build-A-Bear workshop. Like, and do these guys really want to talk about it? Well, they could talk about it. And it turns out Dave has actually gone to Build-A-Bear workshops too. So, well, with his kids. But the idea is that you do have some control, even though you feel like you don't, by acting like you're hosting a party. And it's your party, right? Even though you're not the person who called the meeting. But in the conversation about this and the kind of shifts that happen, we talked about the fact that actually Dave, it made him feel more comfortable. Like, it took the responsibility of him off of him, of A, socializing, B, all of a sudden the ideas are being talked about, and hopefully what he wants to do as a leader is take people's good ideas and use them, but they're so busy doing the pecking order that everybody's kissing his ass, and they're not telling him what they really think because they're so worried about the pecking order. But by Julie being a host of the party, making herself comfortable at the beginning, this is make yourself comfortable, do what you need to do, is because you're then leading into, oh my God, I'm going to confront the leader in the room. Not easy, but you're making it comfortable, like you're kind of gathering the guys behind you from the very beginning, and then you can, which will build your confidence to not confronting the leader. We're not talking about confrontation, we're talking about inclusivity here. We're talking about, I'm going to talk to the leader, I'm respecting myself, I'm respecting everybody in the room, and I'm including everybody's opinion in the room because you're trying to create an environment that's inclusive, not dominant. And I think when we talked about it, the guys were kind of relieved, though, in shock, because all of a sudden the pecking order changed. Can you guys talk about the pecking order a little bit? Like, what happens when that shift happens? talked about it a little bit yesterday, but I think it'd be good to hear from you guys.
Scary. Go for it, guys.
Yeah, well, it definitely can be disruptive. I mean, in terms of it's a new paradigm essentially, and where we are so used to being in that kind of pack herd mentality. If a new voice does come through or tries to break through, it definitely, I don't know exactly where, what exactly it would lead to, but it definitely changes just the dynamic.
Part of what I've done in my past career is work a lot with reporters. And when you're in an interview that's confrontational, where the reporter is kind of coming at you full bore, both barrels loaded, and he's getting ready to unload on you, I found out one of the key tools to use to diffuse tense situations, or what feels like confrontational situations, is to build a bridge. And that is to find something that you can both agree on. And then all of a sudden, that kind of lets people put their guard down. And what's going on in male hierarchical society is people are going to be protecting their turf. They're going to protect their position, they're going to protect their department, they're going to protect their role in that department. So if something comes up in a meeting which is viewed as being confrontational, the walls go up, the barriers go up, the guys are going to circle the herd, they're going to join together because they see you as an outside threat. But if you can use language that deflects that, or first centers on commonality, like saying, hey, what's going on in this organization, here's our goal, here's our role, here's what the organization's trying to do, here's how we all succeed. That kind of language can lower the barriers and all of a sudden get agreement. You start getting people to recognize you, you start getting heads nodding in the room, then you can start breaking down those barriers, and then it stops being male and female and starts being us. It starts being the team. It starts being, you start losing those barriers. So I think that how language is used, and I know that as women you may be thinking, why is it on me that I have to do this? But I think that it's really important to be careful of language and whether the language is inclusive, whether you start out by not attacking somebody or coming across as being overly aggressive. But basically saying, what's something we can all agree on? What's an area of commonality that we can start out the conversation with? And then all of a sudden you can start watching those barriers melt.
I think.
So that's part of the stereotype with us being too aggressive by saying something direct. It's true. So that's the irony. It's true what you're saying because we can't do that because it's a problem, but it's also part of it's the whole thing.
But it's also occurring among the males as well. So I think males, they're jockeying for position as well. If they can marginalize the women, that's just less competition, that's less of a threat to their turf. But
The interesting thing about amplifying each other is that is a strategy that feels really supportive and it's good and it can get the voice out in the room. Ironically, what it can also do is put them on the radar as like, uh-oh, they're joining forces. And it ups the competitive.
Yeah, it does. I think amplification can actually make it more conflict.
That's why the inclusivity part comes in.
That's why the culture. And so then he's the lowest man on the pecking order. Can he risk it? If he does anything inclusive, he's a woman. He already watches HGTV.
But
so he's like, I'm holding on, I'm clawing to stay in the male pack. Right?
But what was good, I thought about the last one was when you guys were saying, before it was like the men were like sales, data, and you were like individual quotes. It was like qualitative versus quantitative. And in the last example was like, my quotes will support your data. Yeah, your data will support, and it was more collaborative. The only thing I think could be better is if you guys, physically, you've got all the dudes over here and the ladies over there. I think it would have been better if you'd mixed yourselves up because that also helps with like conversation. If you're sitting next to David or between these two guys, then it's more likely for the conversations to be like about commonalities. You all have kids or food or whatever, and not like ladies on this side, dudes on this side.
We talked about it. We actually tried to skip that way, but it seemed like too big of a change.
Yeah.
Like in the next meeting, Julie can switch with Peter.
Next time I'm over there.
Yeah, or maybe she can take a pecking order spot, right? That's.
It's a subconscious thing, but when everyone.
But it's like that's the leadership in the middle.
See it, you feel it.
The right hand man, left hand. It's like can we subvert? But it is a direct threat.
I think too, like if you go ahead and take this step, the next time I meet with this group, I don't have to do it again. I don't think. So it goes against the, the norm, but it's well worth the investment.
So,
Here you go.
I don't know if I have a question or I'll just make it a comment because it's something that I feel like I've struggled with, and so I'm somewhat curious if you guys have thought about it or other people in the room struggle with it. So there's lots of talk and there's lots of data, and on one side it's like, okay, bring it up, but then there's these subtle things going on that now it feels like the tact I have to take or the tools I have to take are, I'll just say psychological or psychology approaches in some way that the group doesn't realize that I'm trying to impact the culture in the room, right? And it's even conversation with other women where I'd like to feel like I have a good enough conversation with some of my male peers to go, hey, like, what you did was kind of not cool. Like, but of course, all of us kind of know the first thing that happens is the joke, which the other woman talked about, like, oh, well, don't ask her
the
again.
PC
Which means,
police, all right.
Yeah, which means there's a defensive nature, right? A wall has gone up, which means, because if I talk to any guys, like, where I work, we have this conversation with people starting companies going, hey, you need to be aware of these things. I guarantee you the defensiveness in that room, it is the most uncomfortable conversation we have. And it's because everyone's like, well, that's not me. No.
I'm not sexist.
That's not me.
You call me sexist?
So what I'm not sure is how to push through this barrier of all of us in here going, oh yeah, I've seen that, and guys going, yeah, I know it's a problem, we see it, but not me. It's not me doing that, and I'm not totally sure. Like, obviously we know the data, but I don't know. I'm struggling with that one. Maybe I'll just stop there.
Yeah. React.
Ways that they've done it. Yeah.
I was just going to share too that I manage a team that half of them are men that came from like our data centers, right? So it's a male-dominated organization, and my strategy has been all along just to talk about it and talk about it openly and like define what success looks like in the pecking order, right? So I pulled them aside and said, if you're not questioning what I'm saying and you're not speaking up, that doesn't help me. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, right? Like that, and just talking about it. And they've said over and over again how nice it is to be in a different environment, right? Where the pecking order was really clear in our data centers and what was going on there. And they're like, this is a relief. And I think we underestimate how constraining it is for men. And we assume things that are not necessarily true. And so we limit ourselves to those conversations. And so we just talk about it openly on our team, right? Where it's like, well, this is really different. What's better? What's hard? And I think that transparency is the, like, instead of having like psychological warfare on each other about how we're going to manipulate a situation, just being more open and honest about it and calling it what it is helps. That's been my experience.
Something that stood out to me was when the subconscious thoughts were being read. Almost everyone was unhappy. Someone was saying, I can't believe I'm stuck here with this subject matter. And something that trumps gender or power is really loving what you do and really loving the subject matter. And the person who loves the work becomes the power person, because everyone else, all they have left is struggling for power and advantage, and that's kind of empty. If it's about the work, the other things fall to the side.
I had an observation of the last session, and kind of building on something that David said. Julie changed the rules of the game when she took over in her own leadership style, and the guys started figuring out the new rules of the game. I play a game, here's the new rules, here's a new scrimmage, okay, someone else is leading, there's some different things. And the things to think about, and David, I think you made a comment, and I would like to respectfully object to it. You said
Great.
that men are competitive and they play competitive things, and girls are collaborative. And as a founding member of my university soccer team, and for all the women soccer players and hockey players and basketball players, et cetera,
Swimmers. Thank you. All right, sorry. You know, we compete a little differently, but you know, for those of us who joined a sorority too, it's pretty competitive. So we have different rules of competition. So being able to play our games, because we do, but understanding it and changing it so that it becomes, you know, whether it's a game of passion, but changing the rules of the game so everybody in the room can win. And I think that that's where some of the things that women can think about as leaders. So it was just a comment, and Julie changed the rule, and I actually was in Dana's seat once with a meeting with Julie, so I think I know the.
Thanks for raising that. Really good point.
One of the things that I learned a few weeks ago when I took a business communication class was when I said something to my team of all men, how it was being interpreted. For example, I would say, help me, you know, what's driving this? What's that request? And they all saw it as a challenge, and I'm saying it wasn't a challenge, it was just a question that I'm asking for input. And so I think it's really important for women to understand that language, you know, difference, and learn to understand how you might be taking, because they interpreted probably half the things I've said as, you know, not what I meant. So I think that's a key thing here as well.
It's a really, yeah, the interpretation is a key. Misinterpretation, it's everywhere.
So just to piggyback on all of this communication, posturing, everything, I want everybody to just pause right now, because I'm feeling it, and sense into your bodies. What are you feeling in your bodies with this conversation? Yeah, it's like, rah. And so when the men are talking about this is a competitive game and we're all about hierarchy, that is a fear-based environment to work from. Because if somebody has one thing, I don't have something. When we operate from fear, we actually can't collaborate. The neural centers in the brain are having the amygdala hijack, fight, flight, freeze, or peace. What happened in the last scenario is the women opened up by inviting, giving data and inviting dialogue. So even what drives this? Hey, I'm really curious. Has anyone thought about what drives this? Can we have some more discussion around this? So it's a connector, collaborative approach that activates the oxytocin in the brain, which is our connection. And once you do that, you actually start relieving some of that inner tension, and people go, oh. And they did it beautifully in that last piece. They showed they owned it, but they were generous. And when you have that generativity, so yes, we're competitive, we want to get ahead, but we do it from a place of let's bring each other together. The other win-lose, there's always a loser. And everybody's afraid of being the loser. When you're together, you win together. And that's the difference. And so we just have to notice our bodies are really informing us. It's not that women always have to be it. I've seen men get these skills, and results are very different, but we all have to be aware of what we're saying and really ladder up our intention with what comes out of our mouths. It's not a guarantee we're going to get the results we want, but it starts the process.
Wow.
You know,
chills. That was really good.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You know, you cannot go into this from fear, right? You cannot say, today I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? It has to be like, I'm going to give you all the credit. I'm going to give you all the credit. I'm going to give you all the credit.
There's more than enough credit to go around. Like in the old way, we're using 5% of the ideas, not even the 31%. We're just using the boss's bad idea that he used last time and last time. Now we're using everybody's idea, right? That's the magic. And now we really do have more to share.
So I'm sorry, with your data, David, that you showed at the beginning, this, to me, understanding why women and including minorities drive success, this is the underlining. This is the underlining why.
Yes.
It's not because girls are now playing the boy game.
No.
It's because we bring something different to the table.
Because everybody, unity and diversity. That university, that's what the word, right? Our motto of our country, e pluribus unum, out of many one. That is exactly why it's going to work and why it's going to make everything better, more money, right? Yeah.
I like the dialogue about working together. I have 3 boys, and so I really want to, give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not in this world where they have to have a certain role, or that I have to have a certain role. And so sometimes it's It's just a simple being in a meeting and asking a question and slowing everyone down. I'm in the financial services industry, so very male-dominated. And one of my first jobs, I was new to the whole sector, and I just asked a question, and it slowed everyone down. And very often, I was the only woman to ever ask a question at a conference, at a meeting, at anything. And it's a simple act, and you shouldn't be afraid. No question is a dumb question. And so that got me very far in earning respect by just asking questions and not being afraid of asking a question. So it's something small, but it's meaningful.
Can I just jump? Someone about to speak with, and what we want you to think about, and then David's going to close with some slides. So here's a breakdown of the tools that we wanted you to walk away with and just see in these scenes. By Julie saying Dave's first name and directing her comments to him, she has gone straight to the top, okay? And Dave has two choices when he hears Julie's idea. He can agree with Julie and go with her idea, or brush Julie off like he has in previous scenes, although it's much harder for him to do that in front of his male underlings. David makes a choice to go with Julie's idea, which makes all the men feel like they now have to follow the new pecking order with Julie at the top. And that shows really good leadership from Dave, and actually makes his job a little easier because Julie's done all the work, right? Already. And so it shows good leadership from Dave. Julie makes the smart leadership move of making sure that everyone in the room feels heard and supported. And she's therefore creating a good team on the spot. So literally, she changed this whole dynamic on the spot. And those guys, because they were acknowledged and amplified, probably for the first time, because their leaders just, there's so much pecking order going on, they felt amplified, and they need to feel amplified too. And Dana amplified Julie, making Julie feel supported, and that's really important for all of us as women to support other women in the room, because if somebody does what Julie is doing, that's a risk, and she needs to hear that on the spot, that was cool for her to take it. And then, in turn, the other men have to then realize that they can't just brush them off as easily. And then Dave, surprisingly, feels massively relieved. Okay? Finally, his team feels like a team, thanks to Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
I was
Yeah.
so glad we cast in this role.
Yeah, I mean, there's this amazing TED Talk. Margaret Heffernan, she's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, and she talks about this. Forget the pecking order. It's really great. She said it's cooperation wins, because now we're getting all the ideas, right? It's like not just the boss's one, not David's idea. And so it's like sports analogy, sorry. But yeah, women love sports, and my daughter plays. So it's like having Michael Jordan on your team and not passing him the ball. Having women in the room and not listening to ideas, right? And so we needed this culture of inclusion. Pecking order, they did this amazing experiment. The super chickens, productivity is really easy to tell with chickens. It's how many eggs they lay. So they took this researcher took all the super chickens and had 6 generations of super chickens reproducing, and then normal chickens, and had 6 generations. Which group won? Normal. There was only 3 alive. They pecked each other to death. The super chickens only performed well by suppressing the performance of all the other chickens. John Wick, it's like survival. It's Survivor, right? And it's stupid. This works. Cooperating, listening to all the ideas. It's like treat people like people, and they do better. All right, yeah. So, and then this is what this MIT study of thousands of teams here, what they found. Empathy, equal time talking, and lots of women. It may be women do score higher in empathy. Maybe that's a double hit there for women, but it's simple. If people in a team have equal time, everybody has a different perspective, and that's why they're on the team. That's why we're paying them the big bucks, which is never really the big bucks. So yeah, 2 brains are better than 1. So here's our takeaways: host the party. That's a stereotypical female role, right? Like, that's a leadership role. Amplify the cool picture. Name the cultural stretch, name the dynamic. Yeah, it's like there's this great study of this guy who, he had a scar on his face, and he put makeup on and then took it off for the control condition. Basically, when in interviews, when you're focused on the scar, you don't perform well. The interviewer cannot even focus on you. It's like, well, this guy has a scar on his face, it's really, but all he had to do, he walked in the room, said, hey, you probably don't notice this, but I have this gigantic scar on my face. And the interviewer's like, oh, really? I didn't notice. And they were doing eye tracking software, like stare at the scar, and like, oh, this feels so good. Oh, he has a scar, and he knows he has a scar. This is great. And then he could actually listen to the interview, and then this got much more likely to get the job. Okay, so that's the other one. Name the dynamic. Name what's going on. We actually had somebody say, hey, we're going to do the pecking order thing. Like, she said that in an actual meeting. And they all laugh, right? It's a joke. It's like, oh yeah, I guess that is what we're doing. And then go directly to the leader. That's the little fourth thing. Here's the takeaway slide. Be the host. Amplify. Admit or name the cultural stretch. Call it out, and then direct it to the boss. Do the revolution. Also, you'll see this piece of paper before you go. I'd love it if you could just take a picture and email it to me or give it to me. This is for my own research. I found data showing diversity doesn't work without inclusion. This is inclusion. We're figuring out inclusion, how to do it. But I need your stories. They're so good. Like this was amazing. Round of applause for you. Like, this is incredible. Thank you. I'd love your stories of inclusion, exclusion. If you could send them to me, please. Thank you. Emails on the paper. So yeah, take a screenshot or hand it to me.
Sometime today.
Yeah, or any of us. You're the best. All right, thank you so much.